All right, guys, we're gonna be doing the starter today. Unfortunately, we just getting a click inside the car. I didn't take a video of it, but there's not much going on in there. The battery was good. I hooked up some jumper cables. It still didn't work, so we resorted to leaving it for the next day. Next day, I checked the fuse box right up in here. Sorry about that. And it'd be the fuse right here. It's usually a 28. Yeah, it was just blown. Took it out. I took another one from over here, same fuse, put it in there, and it clicked one time and it blew the fuse right away. So we're just gonna go ahead and take the starter out, see what's going on. To start doing this, you just want to jack up your car. You're gonna need access from the bottom, and I took the wheel off because you're gonna need to get in through here. This little plastic cover comes off right here, and it's a good way to get inside there. I'll do my best to show you guys where the starter is, but it is hard to see, so hopefully we can get there. All right, guys, so you kind of just start out by taking this cover right here. It's held in by a little clip right here, and then the clip that goes into the body right here. Unfortunately, I did break mine, so just keep that in mind. The clip goes into there, so hopefully you don't break yours. And this will give you a good amount of space to look up in here. This is the wire, the cable that runs to the starter. So if your starter's not working, that might be a good time to look, especially if your fuses are being blown. Maybe the wire's exposed and it's shorting out somewhere, but I already checked mine and that's not the case. But I'll get you a closer look of the starter now. All right, guys, so it can be pretty hard to see, but if you see, there's the oil filter, and that's where it goes into, and right above that you can see is the starter. There's the cables that run to it, and it's kind of hard to see, but the starter is basically right above and behind that, so keep that in mind. That's why we come from under the car, because otherwise you can't really get to it. You are gonna have to undo. All right, guys, so one thing you're gonna have to do is take off this cross member here, because it's gonna give you the best access to get to the starter, which is up in there towards the front. So you're just gonna take out 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the other side, and this is a 12 mil. All right, guys, and with this cross member out the way, now we can do our next step, is to just undo this clip right here. You just undo it with the needle nose to get this wire out and up out the way. All right, guys, so I was able to get my camera in here. Just do a little zoom on this. That's the little box I'm talking about, and you can squeeze your hand in this way and work with it. I can't fit my hand in there at the same time, but get the right angle. So that little box has a little clip up here. You just press on it and open it up, and that's gonna expose this nut on there. And you're gonna wanna take that nut off. All right, guys, so you probably don't have to do this, but I did just in case. I did disconnect this connector right here just because it has a pretty thin wire, and I've broken a connector in the past, and it's always unfortunate. Just take the time and take it off. So this is the side that's going to be facing inwards like this, and you just got to get like a little punch in there and press it in, press the tab in, and then just pull it out. Pretty simple, but it can save you making an error that can, you know, break something, which would be unfortunate. All right, so looking up in here, we get that nut off over here was a 12 mil. You just back it out, and then this will loosen this cable. We disconnected this plug right here just for safety purposes, and these cables are pretty much loose already. So next, we're gonna take the actual starter bolts out, and it's gonna be this stud right here. It can be a little hard to see. Hold on, let me zoom in. So there's this stud right here, and this is the actual stud slash bolt, or nut, I should say, that holds the starter. And so there's this one, and there's one a little further up. Let's see if we can get a visual on that. All right, so this is one stud, and the other stud is just a little back there. Hold on, let me get. All right, guys, so looking back in here, this bracket does come off with this nut right here that I'm moving my finger on. This is a 12 mil, so let's get that off. So we took this 12 mil nut, or sorry, yeah, 12 mil nut off, exposed this stud behind it right here, and this is a 14 mil at the end of this wrench right here, and this is the next thing you're gonna break loose. All right, guys, just a quick tip. This little cable and this box, you're gonna have to wiggle it a little bit. It kind of has these little tabs right here that you can see on my middle finger, so just keep that in mind as you're trying to pull it and wiggle it off, that it might be on there pretty good, but don't, just like any other cable, don't pull or tug on it too excessively or erratically, so you don't accidentally tear or rip it apart or anything like that. And this is actually a great angle right here for this bottom stud. As you can see, let me switch hands here. Go from back here to this side. This right here is the stud for the starter motor, and this is that bracket that we took off earlier. So this goes over to his, over on here like this. As you can see, it has this tab over here, so it lines up just one way. You have a 12 mil nut on there. You take that 12 mil off, boom, and then you're exposed the 14 mil. So you put your wrench on that. You're probably gonna have to do a combination of a wrench and then use another wrench at the end of that to get enough leverage on there. And then there's the back stud way back there, and that'll be the 2 bolts for the starter. All right, guys, so we're gonna try to wiggle our camera back in here, see if we can see that starter bolt. It would be great if I can get that for you guys. Here's the cable, here's the starter bolt. Push a little further up, see if we can see it. Oh, there it is. There it is, guys. That's the second starter bolt, and it's a 14 mil as well, and that's the one you'll be taking out. So back there is a lot tighter, so you're definitely gonna have to use a combination of wrenches to get good leverage on there to break it loose. All right, guys, so these are what your starter bolts look like. This is that top one. As you can see, I jacked it up just a little bit. We'll probably replace this. To get back there, my best advice is a ratcheting wrench. I had a combination wrench, or if you can use a combination wrench, but as long as it's straight. Thing is, these angle on these combination wrenches, there's so much stuff back there and it's a tight space, so I couldn't get the right angle, so I slipped on that nut. So I definitely suggest a ratcheting wrench, and then you're gonna use another wrench as leverage on the other side. All right, guys, so problem we ran into, obviously that starter is in there. It's pretty much wedged in there, so unfortunately we are gonna undo this. All right, guys, so I'm doing a quick pause here. When I initially did this, I initially took off the coolant line with the red arrow first, and then afterwards I took off the oil filter housing, which is what the green arrow is pointing at. That's because I was just down there trying to figure it out on my own, but I didn't really know what was going to work and what wasn't. So looking back on it now, after I've done the job, this is a couple months later, but I would definitely start with taking out the oil filter housing first, and go from there. See if you can wiggle out the starter that way without taking off that radiator line. If you need to take off that coolant line, then so be it. But start off first by taking off the oil filter housing completely, disconnect the lines and take it off the car, and try to wiggle the starter out that way. If not, then you're gonna have to take that off and then take off the coolant line. So it'll save you the trouble if you start with the oil filter housing and then the coolant line, and you might be able to save that time on that. But if not, both come out. Yeah, and then that coolant line might not be so important to take the starter out, but I think it was in the way trying to put it back in and trying to put the other bolt back in properly. There we go. We're gonna undo that coolant line right there so we have more space to wiggle that out. And if you need to drain your coolant, you're gonna come over here. Sorry, this is a little rig I had here, so I want to splash so much. You're gonna look for this hole right here, and right in this hole you're gonna see that the drain, and the drain plug is just a Phillips head. I'll show you that here in a second. So just a Phillips head, a couple turns, it'll come right out and you'll drain the coolant. It's unfortunate, but this might be the best way to wiggle that starter out of there. All right, guys, so that's the coolant line right there, and that's the clamp to take it off. I'm gonna point at it, that clamp right there. Just like everything else in here, tight space, so just try your best to get some pliers in there and push that clamp back to get that line out of the way. All right, guys, as you can see, we got that line off, but forewarning, this is not very easy to do. I'll tell you guys some tricks here, but not easy at all. All right, guys, so from the top, luckily I had to do a thermostat change on this, so I was already taking this off anyway. Just kidding, I ended up taking this off so I can get access to this coolant line that we can see right there, pointing at it with the tool there. There, it's loose, so I came up here and I actually used this little hook right here to get in between the line and the rubber hose and the metal line right there, and very gently just got in there. moved it around a little bit, kind of massaged it free, because they were kind of stuck together. So kind of loosened it just a bit with this. As you can see, we use some WD-40. We use this style plier. Where is it? Oh. Hold on, bear with me. We use this style plier right here. And you just got to go from the top, from the side, from underneath, I mean. And you kind of just grab that line and you wiggle it just a little bit. Just start loosening it, pull it back. Don't be too aggressive with this because you don't want to break either of those lines, much less the hard line there. And then I saw what's best. I also have a pan ready just in case. We already drained this, but water's gonna come out of there anyway. So what worked for me was sticking my left arm in here like so, grabbing hold of this line, and at the same time I stuck my right arm through this hole over here and grabbed hold of the line from the top, as you can see back here, and that'll probably give you the best leverage. So after fighting it for probably about 30-45 minutes, I don't know, it took a while, I finally got her free, and just be ready to catch that water that's gonna come out. So with this done, we should be able to push this line up, and just gives us just enough space to pull our starter out. All right, guys, so taking off that hose has done not really much for me. I'm just gonna bite the bullet here. I'm gonna take off this oil filter housing. I've never done this, but let's see how it goes. It's literally those bolts right in front of you. I guess I'll try to point to it. 1, 2, 2 on the other side. Yeah, as you can see, the starter's still just stuck up there. I just literally can't find a way to do this. This linkage for the steering is in the way, and I'm not gonna disconnect that. I think I'll just do the oil filter housing, and I'll see how it goes. I'll let you guys know. All right, guys, so we took those 4 bolts out, 1, 2, and 2 over here on the right side. There is a gasket behind this, so go ahead, grab that. I went ahead and replaced mine. I didn't want to risk that. And this is how it looks when it hangs. We're gonna hope that it's hanging low enough to where I could pull this starter out over here through this little gap. I don't believe so. We might have to take off these hoses and disconnect it completely, but I'll let you guys know. All right, guys, so absolute nightmare of a job here. This is the, sorry, it's just so much, done so much. Oil filter housing. These are the 4 bolts. These are 2 lines. They're gonna be full with coolant. So take out these 4 bolts, remove these 2 clamps, pull out the hoses. They're gonna piss out coolant, so keep that in mind. If so it doesn't fall on your face or anything like that. Just be wary of that. And I had drained my coolant, so obviously there's still coolant in those lines, so be careful. Then you're gonna grab it, pull it down and out this way where my hand is. This is out towards the back. This is the wheel well, just to give you guys some visual. Wheel well, boom, pull it down this way. You're gonna grab the starter, which is right up here, and you're gonna pull it down this way too, in that same orientation it's in. So the back of that cylinder is back here like this. You just pull it down and out, and it comes out right through here. An absolute mission of a job, guys. I 10 out of 10 do not recommend. I don't know if this is the best way to do it or the easiest way to do it, but I don't see any other way of doing it, honestly. So yep, there you guys have it, and we're gonna start putting it back together soon. All right, guys, so once you place the starter in there, I mean, it has those guide pins right here. It kind of just sits there super easy. You put the bolts on there. Keep in mind that there's this coolant line. This one, yeah, there's this coolant line that you're gonna have to push up on way back here to get that second bolt in. Make sure you start them by hand so they thread in correctly, and then run them down. Next thing I did was plug in this coolant line again, or reattach, I should say. Put it back in, put that clamp on there. Then I connected the small blue cable that goes to the pin up top. That goes in easy. I put this over here, or put this in. It only goes one way, so pretty simple. Put the nut on there. And next, I think we're gonna start putting this oil filter housing back in. All right, guys, once you have that coolant line on, the next thing I did was throw on those 2 coolant lines to the oil filter housing. Those 2 right there. I don't really have any tips for that one. just try your best to get it in there. It's not easy at all. And then after that, I just went ahead and put the 4 bolts, as you can see, for the oil filter housing. 1, 2, 3, and the other one's up there, 4. Don't forget to replace the gasket. It goes in there just like this, with the hole right here with these little tabs on the upper left. It pretty much only fits one way, so don't worry about messing it up. There you go. When you run those down, start with your hands first, obviously. That one I did start with a ratchet, but just be careful. Obviously, you don't want to cross there or anything. And just run them down, not all the way, run them down in some sort of pattern, so that way it seats evenly. All right guys, so once you're done with everything in here, I left the wheel off, and I left this little board off, and I left the cross brace off. I put in coolant, just take off your radiator cap, fill it up as best you can. I checked my oil. I know we're on jack stands, but it seemed like there was enough oil in there. I gave her a start, and I just went underneath and I inspected everywhere to see if there was any oil leaks or any water leaks, just from the little bit of time I had it running. Everything seemed to be okay. So what we're gonna do now is finish putting her back together, put this wheel on. I am gonna spray this with brake cleaner because I did inadvertently touch it a couple times while working on this section. So if you have some brake cleaner, just spray that down just in case. Top her off. I'm gonna get her down off the jacks, and we're gonna drive her around just a little bit, see if we can get her to operating temperature, because I'm pretty sure it didn't cycle any coolant at all. So we'll get up to temperature. It'll run the water through. Obviously the water level will go down in here because it's pretty high right now. Actually you can see here, I accidentally passed the fill line, but we're gonna go ahead and run it. It'll cycle that water through. Then we'll come back, park it, let it cool down. Obviously let it cool down before you open this. You don't want to open this with it hot because you're gonna blow up, you're gonna burn yourself. So we're gonna let it cool down, and then we'll fill her back up. See you guys in a bit. All right guys, so it took a while, but we finally got it to cycle that water. I actually had to park and rev it up to 2,500 RPMs for a couple seconds for it to finally get up. And I got off the car and actually keyed out the ignition and everything, and the fan was running for a little bit. So it finally cycled some of that water. It's definitely low right now. I have to add some. I am tempted to open this right now because I don't think it's that hot, but I'm not gonna do it. I have gone burnt like that in the past. So I'm just gonna wait till I know it's cool, and then we'll open it up and top her off again.